program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, I don't know about you, but personally I cannot think of a better way to spend an afternoon than in the company of Africa's giants peacefully feeding. This is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live, you are live.
A very good afternoon to all of you, and welcome to a fantastic start to this afternoon's Sunset Safari, sitting with a breeding herd of elephants here in the open area right outside of our camp. My name is Jamie. This afternoon Craig is on camera with me, and a very special warm welcome to the kids joining us from Lease Corner, Westview and James Sullivan Elementary Schools. I hope you kids are all super excited to be out on a live safari. We're coming to you from a place called Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park area of South Africa. So right up in the top northeastern corner of a country right on the southern tip of the African continent. And this is where we do live safaris each and every single day, twice a day. And while we watch our elephants feeding, for our regular viewers, please send through your questions on #SafariLive on Twitter. There we go, kids, starting off with the largest land mammal in the world. And in this case, a young teenage boy. He's on the outskirts of the rest of the herd. The rest of them are hiding off in the thick bushes just on the outskirts of this clearing. And what I'm going to try and do is I'm going to try and get you a slightly better view. There you can see some grey shapes moving about in the distance. That's a big female. So one of the older females in the group, and I saw a couple of little ones as well, hanging out around the edges. Hopefully, as we wait, and because it is quite hot, I'm hoping that this particular elephant herd might go and even have a mud bath to help to cool themselves down. Now, I'm not sure what the temperature is, but I think it's quite warm. I would say it's probably around 27 or so degrees centigrade, which is around about 78 degrees Fahrenheit. That's my guess as to exactly how warm it is this afternoon. And I think we should shift around because I can see there's another elephant in the distance. We might have a slightly better view of her. Since he is not being obliging this afternoon, hey mister, hiding your beautiful face. Welcome to Alex, who sent through his question, or her question. I'm not sure if it's an Alex boy or an Alex girl. You want to know, how old can an elephant get? Elephants can live almost as long as a human being. So in some cases, even up to 70 years old, but between around about 45 for the males on average to about 60 for the females on average. So that's a really, really long time that an elephant can live. And during all of that time, they're learning so much about the world around them. Hello. What's up? Do you mind if we come have a look at you, or are you not into having company today? Hello. It's all right. It's okay. What's up? Well, it's all about learning to read elephants' body language. And I can see that this elephant is not fully comfortable with us yet. There we go. That's better. Now relaxed a little bit, throwing dust over its skin. But the slowness of its movements, the fact that it's twisting and turning its trunk, tells me that it's in a little bit of doubt about us. And it's important to remember that we live in their home, so they're not visitors in our home, we live in theirs, which means that we always have to be very careful about reading their body language and listening to the signs and the sounds that they give us. This particular elephant actually, I think, just wants to have a dust bath. You see that big trunk full of dust going over its back? Now, elephants do this because it feels good. It's like going to the spa for their skin. And what will happen is that dust will protect their skin from the hot sun, and it will also help to get to all of the itchy spots, places where there's ticks and exoparasites that are on their skin. Now, elephants don't have thumbs, but they can throw dust all over themselves. And because this is such a wonderful dust bath, I'm just going to move forward ever so slightly, if this elephant's okay with it, so that you can see exactly how much fun this elephant is having, and then we can answer Erica's question once we've got a better view. There we go. Thank you, Ellie. Now, Erica, you want to know if elephants have any bones in their trunk. Erica, no, they don't. They don't have any bones in their trunk. It is completely boneless. And you see the way that it's moving backwards and forwards all around? That's because they've got very special muscles in there that go in every direction, which means that the trunk can stretch forward. It can almost get about a third bigger, or it can contract up so that it doesn't get in the elephant's way. It can put it into its mouth. It can reach up with it. It can twist it sideways. And at the end of the trunk, it basically looks like two fingers right at the tip. There, can you see what I mean? And those are so sensitive and gentle. There you can see it's using its trunk to put sand on it. Those are so sensitive and can be so gentle that an elephant could pick up a matchstick or a toothpick off the ground. So trunks are really one of the most amazing things about elephants. And they use them for all sorts of things. What sort of things do you think an elephant uses their trunk for? What do you think they might use it? Now, you think about why elephants have trunks and what you think they might use it for. And in the meantime, Stephen, you want to know about the tusks that are sticking out there. Stephen, elephants use their tusks for a lot of different things, just like they use their trunk for a lot of different things. They dig with their tusks. Sometimes they dig the tusks into the bark of trees so that they can strip away the bark and eat the sort of juicy layer that's underneath the hard part. They can use them to fight and defend themselves. And for the males especially, when it comes time to fight for a female, a male with nice big tusks will be able to, and if he's really big in size as well, he'll be able to push his opponent away, and so that he can get to the female that's ready to mate with him. So tusks get used for lots of different things. So what do you think an elephant uses its trunk for? Because we've seen what this elephant's using it for. It's using it to throw dust over its shoulders. Look at that. Now, Mallory, you want to know how hard is an elephant's bite? That is a very good question, Mallory. I know how hard a hyena can bite. I know how hard a lion can bite. But I actually don't know exactly how hard an elephant can bite. I'm going to say very hard indeed, because they've got very strong jaws and very, very large teeth. And I think if you were to stick your hand in their mouths, you'd probably find that they could crush your hand in a bite if it were to bite down. Because inside their mouth are 4 molars, one on each side, top and bottom. And those are basically what they chew with for most of the day. And if you think about it, you know, if you exercise a lot, you get very, very strong muscles. Well, an elephant exercises its jaw all the time because they have to eat and eat and eat and eat and eat pretty much all day. So maybe that would strengthen the muscles around their jaw and make that bite very strong. I certainly know that they can crunch through thick branches with their teeth. So I would say it's much stronger than our mouths. This elephant's almost looking like it's going to have a nap now. Sitting in the shade, look, it stopped dust bathing. Eyelids are drooping a little bit. Now, Ayun You want to know how much can elephants weigh? Elephants can weigh a huge amount. A very big elephant can weigh over 5 tons, which is over 10,000 pounds. And in record-breaking cases, in situations where the biggest elephants in the world have been sort of estimated how much they weigh, some people say they could even weigh up to 10, even 12 tons, which is over 20,000 pounds. So they can get very, very, very big. Much heavier than Craig, myself, and the vehicle that we're driving. Much, much heavier than that. So they're absolutely massive creatures. And this is a small elephant. This is not a big elephant at all. I don't want to monopolize all of your time with these magnificent elephants. Let's go across to James to go and see what creature he's found for you.
We found a very nice creature. It's very different from the elephants you've been looking at with Jamie. This one is not very big. It's probably about a foot long. It's quite big for its kind. And it looks like it's got a big pointy top, but it doesn't actually. That's its head. And you know what it is? It's not a turtle. It's not a tortoise. But it's a terrapin. And we call all of those animals the chelonids. And that means basically that they all have a shell. And this particular chelonid, which is called a terrapin, lives in fresh water and sometimes out of the water, which is very lucky. We're lucky to see them there. And there are a whole lot more terrapins. Now remember, a reptile, unlike the elephants you've been looking at, is cold-blooded. And that means that it can't stay warm without the sun. Now, I know that may seem silly to you because you probably think you can't stay warm without the sun either, but actually you can. If you put a blanket on, or if you put some nice clothes on, you can stay warm. The same is not true for something like a terrapin. They get very cold if they aren't in the sun, and your body and the elephant's body is very clever at maintaining the same temperature all the time. We're always about, do you remember what your temperatures are? Probably about 36.5 degrees Celsius, which is about 98 degrees Fahrenheit, I believe. My name is James Henry. It's lovely to have you with us, and you can ask us any questions you like. You just send those through to your teacher. She will send them through to us, and they will arrive in my ear. So we're going to spend a little bit of time at the waterhole here, and then we're going to carry on and see what else we can find. Let's have one last look at those terrapins, and then we'll move along. And as I was saying there, you can see we're in the middle of winter, and that means that, well, at night it gets pretty cold. In the morning it's pretty cold, but now it's really a very pleasant temperature, and I would guess that it's about 76 degrees Fahrenheit out here at the moment. And that's very nice for the terrapins. They'll be enjoying that very much indeed. And so they'll spend some time in the sun, and then of course they'll get quite cold during the course of the night. Hello, Dominique. Remember, they're not turtles. They are not turtles at all. Please don't confuse them with turtles. You say, how much do the turtles weigh? They're not turtles. They are terrapins. Okay, so I'm going to ask your teachers to write that on the board, because it's one of the big confusing things that happens whenever we show terrapins or tortoises to people. They think they're turtles. They are not turtles. They are called terrapins. And you say, what do they eat, I think, was your question, Dominique.
What do they weigh?
Oh, what do they weigh?
Yes.
Well, it depends. That one, I guess, probably weighs about 2.5 pounds or so. I would imagine 2.5 pounds, maybe 3 pounds. A really big one, probably 5 or 6 pounds. And then the little ones, I mean, remember, they come out of the eggs and they're that big. They're tiny little things there. And then they probably weigh about an ounce when they hatch. So they're very small. And of course, they're born in eggs, much like chickens. All reptiles, or most reptiles, are born in eggs, unlike most mammals, of course, which produce live young. And they're all warm-blooded. These are all cold-blooded. Okay, let's carry on. See what else we can find along the way.
Oh dear, it seems as though we completely lost James in the middle of his sentence. We do apologize for that. It is just one of those things, bringing you live safaris, but that's okay. Craig and I are still here, and we are sitting with our elephant herd. You can see his tail happily swishing from side to side, which is usually a sign that an elephant is completely comfortable with you. They're completely relaxed, nothing stressing them, flapping their ears to cool themselves down. So elephants don't flap their ears because they're angry. They flap their ears because they're hot. And I don't blame him, because it is a hot day today. And I actually think most of the herd are going to start walking towards the dam that's not too far away from here. It's been a while since I've seen elephants, so I'm not planning on going anywhere. Okay, well, let's see, since he is so comfortable with us, whether or not we can sneak a little bit closer to them. So, have any of you given some thought as to what an elephant uses its trunk for? He's giving you a good example here of another way that an elephant uses their trunk. Let's watch the way that he eats, and that will give one answer. Okay, let's have a close look at his skin so that we can answer Cedric's question. Now, Cedric, you want to know, why is his skin scaly? Cedric, it's not scaly, it's wrinkly. So an elephant's skin is very, very tough. Oh, I suppose it does look a little bit scaly, doesn't it, in places? Okay, the scales are actually made because he's covered in mud. So if we go a little bit down and to the right there, Craig, or up a little bit, sorry, and to the right, the other right. Thank you. I think that's maybe what Cedric saw, the scales over there. That's just because mud has dried on his skin. So that's the scales that you might have seen. But an elephant's skin is very thick and it's very, very wrinkly. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The reason that it's so thick is because an elephant has to walk sometimes past trees with big thorns on them. And they feed on trees just like the one that you're looking at here, that's got very, very sharp thorns, or spines, actually, in the case of this particular tree. And that if their skin was too thin, it would scrape them and hurt. So their skin is very thick. But one of the reasons that people suggest that they are wrinkly is it increases their surface area. So it increases the surface area of their skin, which allows them to be able to cool down quicker. And also, when they throw mud on themselves, it goes into the cracks and then it takes quite a long time to dry. And that helps them to keep cool for longer. Because imagine being a big elephant, and on our summer days here, it can get to over 100 degrees Fahrenheit, sometimes over 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Now imagine being a really, really big elephant, and you big and dark, and the sun's beating down on you. They have to have ways to cool down. And so their skin helps with that, and so do those amazing ears of those. Those ears are very thin, and they've got lots and lots of blood vessels. Just like if you look at your hand, stretch your fingers right back and look at your hand, and you can see all of the veins and blood vessels there. Elephants have those in their ears, and that helps there. He even flapped them for us, and you could even actually have a chance to see those blood vessels. And what that does is it means that the blood is very close to the skin, and then the wind cools down the blood. And then, from there, the blood flows to the rest of the body. There, can you see his veins and his arterioles in there? Those are all blood vessels carrying blood. How cool is that? So an elephant basically has an internal air conditioning system. Alexandra, earlier we saw that elephant throwing dust on its back, and there you can see there's some mud on its back as well on this particular elephant. Now you want to know why they do that. Alexander, remember how we spoke about the fact that it feels good to the elephant. It's something that they like doing. It protects their skin from the harsh sun, and also it helps to get rid of any sort of itches and scratches. Elephants, even though they've got very, very thick skin, can get ticks So a tick, I'm sure you've all heard of ticks. Maybe some of you have even encountered ticks before. Our ticks bury their heads into the skin of animals and they suck their blood. And it makes it very, very itchy for that animal. And so by throwing dust and mud and dirt, the elephant can help to shake some of them loose. So that's why elephants throw dirt on them. But honestly, I have to tell you, I think elephants like doing it. I think it feels good on their skin. And you can see, if we look across over here to the right, there's this elephant that was throwing all of the dirt on her back. Have a look over there, and you can see she's completely covered. Welcome to Tiffany. Now, we spoke about how strong an elephant's bite is, and we spoke about the fact that they eat pretty much all day. Now, Tiffany, from that, you want to know, how much will an elephant eat on an average day? Tiffany, anywhere from about 150 kilograms to 300 kilograms. So over 300 pounds to over 600 pounds. And the reason I'm giving you such a big gap, or such a big difference in numbers, is because, remember, elephants come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. So a big male elephant could eat 300 kilograms, and a small young elephant like this one would probably only eat about 150, because she would be about half the size of a big male elephant. So even though she's pretty big, she's still only half the size of some of the males that we see. And what she's doing now is she's actually feeding on the leaves from this tree. So there we go, that's one use for an elephant's trunk. But they do lots of different things with their trunks. They will drink water using their trunks. And what I mean by that is they pull the water up into their trunk and then move it into their mouths. So they don't drink through their trunk like a straw. They just pull the water up into their trunks and then pour it out into their mouths. And I'm just going to move back so that she can come past us if she wants to. There's lots of elephants still. But right now, I've created a situation where if she wants to come past me, she has to squeeze right past the car. And that might make her feel a bit uncomfortable. So all we're going to do is move back a little bit. There we go. So that if she wants to, she can come right in front of us without feeling like she's too close. Here she goes, munching away. Oh, it sounds like James has been very busy while you've been with us, and he's found what looks like a very big cow.
I have found an enormous buffalo bull. And a buffalo bull, everybody, is supposed to be one of the most terrifying animals in all of Africa. And if you were walking down this road, this is the animal that you would not want to see, because they can get very scared of human beings. And if they get very scared, well, then they sometimes will attack us. But you can see he's very happy right now, and he's not going to attack us, and we're sitting close to him because we're in a vehicle. And so we're perfectly safe where we are. And you can see he's an old fellow. His eyes are eaten clean of their fur by the oxpeckers. Those are the birds that you might see sitting on him very soon. That's why that skin is missing. And he's sitting in what we call a pan. Now, a pan is like a pond that forms out here. There you can see him sitting in his pan. And for a buffalo bull, an old man like this is the perfect place to sit, because it's shady, there's nice cool mud in it, and he can lie here very comfortably for the whole day. And Alexia, you're wondering what they eat, especially I suppose because you can see him chewing. But have you seen him bite anything? I bet you haven't seen him bite anything at all. What he's eating now is actually his lunch. He's eating his lunch again. He had his lunch about 2 or 3 hours ago, but he's still eating it. How is that possible? For lunch, he would have picked a lot of grass that there is around here. He would have eaten a lot of grass and swallowed it, and now he's eating it again. He's re-chewing it, and that's called rumination. Can you all say that? Rumination. It's quite a difficult word. So he is a ruminant who does rumination, and you'll find it's just the same with deer or American buffalo or any of the antelope species that we get here. And what they do is they lie down, and cows, of course, the cows are the same. They lie down and they vomit up into their mouths. Watch his mouth now. There, you see? He vomited up into his mouth and he's re-chewing the food that he had earlier today. Now, I know that sounds gross, but it's not very gross for if you only eat things like grass. And so he's re-chewing it. He's chewing it again and again and again, and then swallowing it and vomiting it and chewing it and swallowing it again. And what that means is that he can get a lot of nutrients, a lot of good food from his one meal. And the reason they have to do that is that it's very, very difficult for them to digest grass. Now, Alexia, you've asked a question that indicates you are very like me. You want to know how long do these poor things live? You know, here's a buffalo bull and he looks like he's all on his own and he's lonely. And how long does he live? Well, Alexia, not as long as you're going to. Normally, they only live for about 14 or 15 years. But if you were to keep one away from lions and away from the difficulties of living out here in the wilderness, you'd find that they probably live for as much as 20 years. But out here, very seldom do they live beyond sort of 15 or so. And normally they'll be eaten by lions before they reach their 15th birthday. But although he will be eaten by lions, he's a very big fellow. And Dini, you're wondering what the average mass or weight of a buffalo is. Well, up to 800 kilograms. Now, 800 kilograms, if you multiply that by 2.2, gets you to roughly 1,800 pounds. So that's pretty big. That's for a big bull. And I'm just going to check in this area because it is different from one area to another. Some areas they'll be heavier and some areas they'll be lighter than they are, and that often depends on what they have to eat. So that says here on my very special app that I have on my phone, it says that in this area actually they don't weigh quite that much. They weigh normally just about 620 kilograms, which is about 1,600 pounds. And that's the big bulls. But they can weigh up to 800, which is enormous, especially up in East Africa. And Genevieve, they are not born with horns. You say, oh, they're born with horns. No, they aren't. There's a very good reason why no animal is born with horns. Remember, they have to suckle from their mothers, and their mothers' udders are underneath, between the back legs, exactly the same way that they are on a cow. And so if the animal had to suckle with horns, can you imagine, sorry about the sun, can you imagine how much harm they would do to their mother's udders if they were born with horns? And in actual fact, buffalo are quite clever. Those horns don't come out like that. When they grow, they come out the back, so they face backwards on the buffalo's head, and that means that when they lift their noses to suckle, they don't hurt their mother's udders with those horns. So it's really quite clever. And then much later, the horns come up to the front, and then they split out like that, and eventually, after many years, they end up like this old boy's horns there. And you can see his horns look like they've been rubbed, and they have. They've been rubbed all over some trees. Now, Deshant and Karina, you're wondering how big the horns are. Well, I'm going to ask Seb to bring the camera back this way again. They're probably about that big. So, if he was, they're about as big as my hands in between my arms. Can you see that, Seb? Shall I sit frontwards? Let me sit frontwards, and you can see it more easily because I can't turn around properly. They're probably about that big. See that? All the way around like that. They're not quite as wide, but they're almost that wide, so about that big. So they're quite impressive. This guy doesn't have the biggest horns I've ever seen in my life. Some buffalo have got much bigger horns than that, but this chap has got they're not bad. And I just wanted to say, you can see he's been rubbing there. You can see the bits of wood on the edge of his horns there, and he's been rubbing on something called a red bush willow tree, and that, you can see, has left his horns with lots of holes in them. And little pieces of wood. And I think they do that because they get very itchy. The horn looks like it's not living, but it is. And I think it gets very itchy. Some moths will come and lay their caterpillars or their eggs on the horn, and they will eat into it, and I think that makes them very itchy. This guy's very tired. You can see his eyes are getting very heavy. Ooh, look how tired he is. He might just go to sleep. Difficult to sleep while you're chewing, though. There we go, he's a little bit more awake. Now, what he's done is he's smelt something on the wind. And I don't know if you can tell, but the wind has just picked up a little bit, which means that there is something moving towards him that he didn't quite like the smell of. That's why he lifted his head. Jaden, you say, can buffalo be different sizes? Yes, as I said, they can be different sizes, and it will depend on what area you're in, as to what size they are. So in this area, like I said, about 1,600 pounds. And I think if you go all the way up to East Africa and the Mara, which is where we have one, I'm not sure if we're going to go to the Mara today, I don't think so. But in Kenya, you'll find buffalo there that are probably up to 1,800 pounds. And their horns are much wider than these ones. And Tiffany, you ask a very good question, because that's a very big animal. And you say, do buffalo have predators? There's only one real predator of the buffalo, and that, of course, is the lion. Lions will eat buffalo if they can get them. And they do love to eat buffalo, and we have a pride in this area, which I don't think we're going to see today, but we might be lucky, called the Nkuhuma Pride. And the Nkuhuma Pride eats a lot of buffalo. They've eaten huge numbers of buffalo this year, and in fact the reason we're not seeing them is because there haven't been many buffalo around here, and so the Nkuhuma Pride has moved off to the north of where we go, because that's where there are some more buffalo. Hyenas could potentially take a buffalo, but it would be very unusual for hyenas to manage to take an animal as big as this massive buffalo bull. Now, my friend Tristan is not on walk today. He's managed to find himself the best office in the whole world, and he's going to show you exactly how big that buffalo's skull is.
Well, good afternoon everybody, and welcome to our sunset safari from our office. As you can see, I have metamorphosized into a buffalo today. So here we go. This is a big buffalo skull. Now I'm going to put it down a little bit because it is quite heavy. Now, as James said, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I have got Ferg, and we are in the best office. We're in James's office. So this is where James often hangs out in his tent, and we're playing with all the toys that James has. And one of the toys that he has is this massive buffalo skull. Now you can see just how big it is. I'm not a very small person. I'm a little bit bigger than what James is, and you can just see, if I had to have had that buffalo that James just saw on my lap, look how big the skull would be. It would be massive. So really, really large. And you can see that they've got these big horns that come off to the side. Now this buffalo has little growths on its horns. Can you see that? Can you see there's lots of little tubes coming off? Now remember, if you have any questions about what these may be, you can ask your teachers, and they will send the questions through. And a special warm welcome to the schools. Actually, I forgot, naughty me. So I hope you guys are enjoying the safari so far, and you enjoyed your elephants and buffalo. Now these tubes that we see are from a very, very clever insect. Out here in nature, everything gets used. All the animals will find a way of utilizing every resource that they can to find food. Now this particular sort of black brown stuff on the buffalo's horns is very, 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 very tough to eat. Lots of animals can't eat it, but there is one special animal that can, and that is these little things that are making the tubes. Now each of these is an egg that was laid by a moth. And as that moth's egg turns into a little larva, so the larva starts to eat this keratin, which is what this brown stuff is, and it's the same as your fingernails. And as they eat, they sow some silk and defecate, and so they build a big tube like this. And slowly but surely, they grow inside there. Once they've grown, they then come out and start to hatch. So you can actually see some of the adults that have hatched already. Isn't that amazing? And over the years, eventually, this skull will have no more of the brown keratin. There'll be nothing left. So it will just be this white bone that you see here underneath all of this. Very, very, very cool. So, Amanda, you're wondering if the buffalo lost one of its horns, what would happen? Well, actually, it depends on what it is. If it's a female, then generally is not really much it will do. It doesn't have to worry too much because the females don't really use their horns too much other than to defend themselves from lions, and they'll still have the other horn to be able to do that. And it is quite common to see females with shorter horns or broken horns. And in the males, it just means that unfortunately for them, they're not going to be a male that's going to compete for the top of the kingdom. They're not going to be able to fight their way to the top to be the biggest and best buffalo, because once their horn breaks, they can't fight with one another, because they use these horns to be able to fight to establish who is the big boss and all the buffalo. Now, actually, outside, I think I've got a set of horns with a broken horn, so let's put that down there, and let's go outside the tent, because it is a little bit cramped in here. Now, I've got to be careful of my head. James is much smaller than I am, so it's easy for him. But here we go. We can see this buffalo is a little bit different. Its horn is broken. So there we go. That's what happened to this buffalo. Its horn broke, and you can see that it doesn't grow back. Now, even though this buffalo may be dead, if it was alive and the horn broke like this, unfortunately, it can't grow back. It's not like a set of antlers that we see on a deer or one of those, a moose or an elk, that can grow every single year. With a buffalo, because it's bone that is underneath those keratin sheaths, or those things that are like our fingernails, unfortunately, once it breaks off, it doesn't come back again. So it's like your arm. If somebody had to take away your arm, it's not going to grow back again, unfortunately. So for the buffalo, that's what happens, and you can see what's actually underneath that brown is nice big bone. Now, Serena, you want to know why the horns on a buffalo curve? Well, Serena, I'm not really sure, actually. It's probably to do with the fact that it's in a way that they can use it more effectively. So when they are trying to sort of defend themselves against big prey animals or big predators like lions, you'll find that they're going to turn their head and they're going to hook it up like this. And so that hooked horn helps them to get underneath and to be able to actually then do more damage. So that's probably why they have more hooked horns. But each animal in nature will have different designs of horns, and it will be for different uses. And like I say, the buffalo, probably the biggest way is to try and protect themselves and to make sure that the horn itself can actually get in some purchase when they try and attack a predator. So when a predator tries to get them, then they're able to use that to knock them over. Right, Fig. So, Alexandra, you're wondering if the buffalo will use the horns to defend themselves if a lion approaches. So yes, they will. Like I just said, when you're standing there, or if the buffalo is standing and the lions come at them and they start to chase this buffalo and they corner the buffalo, then the buffalo will start to use its horns, and it will try and impale these lions and try and get these lions away by chasing them off with the horns. And so they'll run at the lions, and if the lion gets too close, then they use their head, and sometimes the lions will get hooked by this part of the horn here. And I've actually seen a lion being killed by a buffalo before, which is very, very, very nasty. But the lions were trying to kill the buffalo, and so it had to try and protect itself. And unfortunately, once this gets on, the buffalo is so powerful that it can throw the lion into the air. And you can see this horn, it doesn't look very sharp, but the buffalo's got so many big muscles on the neck that when it hooks into an animal and it lifts it up, it's going to do a lot of damage. And that horn goes inside, and it can then pick that lion up, and it will throw it, and it goes into the air and does these somersaults. And sometimes the rest of the herd will come and try and help this buffalo, and you end up with a situation where the buffalo try and trample that lion, and it becomes quite a big scene. So you have to be a bit careful around buffalo. They're one of those animals that you always have to watch out for, even us as people. Now, another animal that you have to be a little bit careful of when you're in a vehicle, or actually more when you're on foot than in a vehicle, is an elephant. So let's see how Jamie's faring with her elephants.
Well, we definitely would have to be careful of elephants, as Tristan said, both on foot and in the vehicle. But remember what I said earlier about the fact that we respect them because we know that we're in their home and not the other way around. And they're also very, very big and very, very strong. So it's important that we remember that, and we never take for granted that they're going to behave in a predictable manner. Most of the time, though, it's important to remember that no animal's out to get you. And you've just got to make sure that you don't upset them in any way, that you don't frighten them, that you don't make them feel trapped. And then 99.9% of the time, you'll be absolutely fine. And we've been sitting with these elephants for the last almost 45 minutes, and they've been completely relaxed with us. This is another group that's come out of the shade and moved out into the open area. And there's quite a few young ones in this particular herd. I'm still hoping that they're going to go and have a drink. Welcome to Tegan, who would like to know, can elephants go for a long time without food or water? Well, they could probably go for quite a long period of time without food, although they'd start to get very thin and very, very weak. But the most important thing to almost all animals is water. And an elephant, after a couple of days of not being able to find water, is going to start getting weak, and it will die relatively quickly, much like a human being. Remember, we can survive, as human beings, we can survive for quite a long time without food, but it's water that is the most important to us. And elephants, if they can, they like to drink every day, usually twice a day, if they can, sometimes even more than that, if it's hot. And even desert elephants are very good at finding secret places where they can drink water or eat melons that have lots of water in them. So it'll be the water that will make them struggle. So no, they're not like a camel that can go for days and days without drinking. They need to drink water. And that's why, well, that's one of the reasons why I think they're going to start making their way towards the water hole. Because I can see that these guys aren't wet, they haven't been swimming, they haven't splashed their backs, so they probably want to do that now while it's so hot. Now, Tanya, you want to know, what is the average height of a newborn elephant? That is a very good question. A newborn elephant is probably about a meter or so high, or about 3 feet high. Let me think about it. Newborn elephant, maybe a little bit less. I'm just trying to work it out with my hand off the ground. Yeah, about a meter sounds about right, about 3 feet high. Remember, a newborn elephant can weigh as much as 100 kilograms. That's over 200 pounds of newborn baby, but they're still the cutest baby animal out here, or at least one of the cutest baby animals. We've been lucky enough to see a lot of new, very young babies, and they are so cute. They don't know how to use their trunks. They're all new to the world and a bit stumbly. This isn't a new baby. This one's about 3 years old. Now, Kalwani, you want to know, why are elephants only grey? Why are they not other colours? Can they be other colours? There's only one other colour that an elephant can be, and that is almost a pale, just a bit off-white, almost completely white. And the reason that elephants are grey is because if they weren't, their skin would be super sensitive to the sun. And sometimes what's known as an albino elephant is born, and that's an elephant that's born without any pigment and with pink eyes, because they don't have any pigment at all. And there's quite a few animals that can be born with albinism, but unfortunately for the animals out here in Africa, being born with pale skin actually makes them easier as a target for predators, and also it makes their skin very sensitive to the sun. So grey is the perfect colour for an elephant to be, and generally speaking, you don't get any other colours. Not even pink. So that's the only other colour that you might see, but it's very unusual because those elephants struggle to survive. Cedric, you want to know if this is a family of elephants. It is, Cedric. That's exactly what it is. And that's one of the things that I love about elephants, is they live in families. Except for the males, who usually either move about on their own or with other males. Elephant breeding herds, that's what we call them. That's basically a fancy way of saying a family, because every member is either a mother or a daughter or a sister or a cousin or an aunt. So they are all connected and all related to each other. And they have very, very special bonds, not just with their mums, like this little one does, but also with their older sisters, their older cousins. It's very special. Right, now, unfortunately, I'm sure that you would love to spend the rest of the day watching these animals with us, but for the 3 schools that are joining us, you have to go back to class, I'm afraid. So it's been lovely having you, and I hope that we will see you again in the future. To your teachers, thank you. normal sunset safari. Bye-bye, kids. Okay, and on that note, we are doing our regular sunset safari for all of our regular viewers. So what that means is send through your questions on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter. Obviously, education is a very, very important part of what we do. I think we'd be hugely remiss if we didn't take the opportunities that we've been given to educate kids across the globe who haven't perhaps had a chance to view these things in real life before. But thank you all for your patience, and we now return to our regular safari. How cool is this? Elephants everywhere. I think at some point I'm going to move on and start making my way towards the dam, because I think we might have quite a nice drinking, swimming collection of elephants. I suspect that's what you've had, those of you who've been watching the Djuma Dam camera, I suspect that's what you've been watching for most of the morning. But let's go and see if we can enjoy some views of them. Oh, was that a tough branch you had to break there, big girl? Yes. Oh, we've been so lucky with elephants recently. We really have. I'm pretty sure these are the elephants that actually, maybe not. They did come from a different direction. I'm pretty sure the elephants you saw on the Djuma Dam camera earlier today were the ones that we walked into this morning, quite by surprise. No harm done, though. We just went back the opposite direction. This is very peaceful. I have literally driven 500 meters away from camp, and this is all I've had to do all afternoon, is sit and watch elephants. I'm quite happy with that. And of course, as you may or may not have noticed, we're back up to 2 vehicles. Rusty is now fully functional once again. I wonder if this is a pair of siblings. They look a little bit close together, but it is possible. It's usually about 5 or 6 years between the birth of calves. So that one, the elder one, looks a little bit young to be an older sibling, perhaps an older cousin. Either way, I would love to know what gets said between young elephants. What they say to each other. Oh, by the way, speaking of elephants, I loved some of the pictures that you all shared of the different elephant shoes. There were some really hilarious ones. That, of course, was born after my mishearing a question that was about elephant shrews, not elephant shoes, but I heard elephant shoes and then was left with some very bizarre images. But thank you to all of you that jumped on that bizarre train of thought. Really appreciated seeing some of them. I had such a good giggle. Okay. I'm going to go and make my way to the water. James has found you something very cute and much fluffier than an elephant.
It is quite a lot fluffier than an elephant. Indeed, it is a squirrel, a tree squirrel. It is sitting upon a leadwood tree, just watching the world go by, I suppose. Isn't it sweet? And look at it on the tree. You'd never spot it there. The only reason we spotted it is because we saw it run up there. Hello. Yes, come out and say hello. Hello. Oh, it's still there. Still got its little head poked out the top. That is wonderful. Now remember, while we are on the school drive, no, not on the school drive anymore, you can talk to us, hashtag Safari Live, of course. That is the best way and only way to get hold of us at the moment. There's the little squirrel in the shade now. It's getting a little bit hot, obviously. That really is rather sweet. I just took an illegal photograph of him so that I can spot him later. Yes, that's what I said, Mr. Squirrel, an illegal photograph of you. Can you believe it? Now, of course, he will be waiting for a few insects to eat, looking for seeds. And, of course, they are great hoarders, just like the squirrels of storybook fame, they will keep larders filled with marula nuts that they will go to and sample during the course of the long winter. Well, pretty short winter out here, really. About 3 months. Isn't that cool? His whiskers. Huge ears. Definitely hugely important for his defense. I say him, it could easily be a female. You can tell, of course, as soon as you can see under the tail, because they have the most outlandishly sized, testicles, basically. The males, obviously. It's quite astounding. Righty, we're going to move on from here, head towards Beefle's Hook Dam, see what's going on there. I've been past Twin Dams, there was absolutely nothing going on there, so there are no leopards around that particular part of the world, so we'll go up to the far northeast and see what we can find there while we do that. Tristan is in my home.
I am James, and I'm being very careful. I'm trying not to break anything or move anything. I know how defensive you are, but I might have to rearrange a few things from time to time, given that I'm a slightly larger human and I keep bumping into things as I walk around your tent. I don't know how you do it, but I suppose being a bit shorter is better. These lights keep hitting me in the head whenever I move, and it really is something I need to remember. Now, we were scouting around outside and we managed to find a very, very, very cool little spider, but not just the spider itself. There's a little sort of story behind the spider, and it was encased in a little leaf, and actually I'm not quite sure how we saw it, but we did manage to find it, and I want to show you under the microscope what it looks like, because it is really cool, and there's a whole little thing going on inside here that is absolutely amazing. So I've placed it under the microscope, and you can see it's very, very small. If I put my finger there in relation to that leaf, it is not big at all. So like I say, if we go to the microscope itself, then we can be able to see what I'm talking about. So there we go. Now look what you can see. You can see a little creature peering out of the leaf, which is a spider. Now I'm not 100% sure which spider it is. I'm busy trying to sort of research and see if I can find it. But on the left hand side you see that what looks like another spider, but not really. Well, that is the spider when it was younger. So what's happened with the spiders, as it's gone from from a young spider to an older spider, it is growing, and that means it needs to molt. So what has happened here is, as that spider started to grow, it's basically secreted a fluid which expands the exoskeleton slightly. It then absorbs that fluid again while secreting a different type of fluid that is the exoskeleton, the new exoskeleton, which will still be soft with folds in it, and so it will then absorb that new fluid, and there will be a space between the old exoskeleton and the soft new one. And then what it does is it will get its heart rate to pump more and more and more and more and more, and that will make it get pressurized, and it will keep pushing its cephalothorax, and eventually, bang, like popcorn, the exoskeleton will pop, and out will emerge the spider. Now the spider will then have to go back into the leaf, which is what we saw just now. It's now sitting there, and you'll probably find the exoskeleton is still very soft and very difficult for it to be able to be out and about, because things can then target it while it's still drying out and adjusting to its new exoskeleton. But isn't that amazing? To find the two together is really very, very rare. It's been a long time since I've seen a spider with its molt right next to it, and the fact that it's just peering out of the leaf and watching us while we were looking at it is really cool. Now I don't know if you noticed on the microscope that it had all its eyes that were visible, so it was busy watching us with those simple eyes and just checking what we're up to, and they're all positioned on the front of the head and on the top of the head. So that's because any sort of prey item that could potentially come past will be able to be seen and then either caught, or it's going to be just to defend itself from predators. So if I had to put my finger right near where those eyes are, it will then probably scurry back into the leaf that it's folded for its protection. Now the interesting thing with those eyes is that those eyes do not see very, very far. They do pick up movement very well, and so if you just go over them very close, you'll find that that spider will duck and move. But from this distance I can move around quite happily, and our spider is not noticing what is going on at all. really, really, really cool to see. And for it to be poking out of the leaf like that is absolutely amazing. So that is one of those special sightings. Now I can also see on the dam cam behind me that the elephants seem to be having a whale of a time down at Gari Dam. I just noticed now while I was looking at the microscope that they're all playing in the mud there and having a really good time, and it's so warm this afternoon that it is the perfect temperature for elephants to be playing. Now you can see, there we go, look at that. We've got babies lying in the mud. They are really going crazy. They're rolling around, covering themselves full of mud, and elephants will do this all just to keep their skin in good condition. So it's going to cover themselves with lots and lots of mud, and then later they'll go rub up on trees. But look at that, the whole family is getting involved. It's not that often that you actually see the females in there with the young ones, but the babies must be loving this. This is like going to the pool or to the sea with your parents. You can go and you can just get absolutely wild in the sort of water and around the edges. And look at that on its back legs. So, believe you're wondering how much an elephant eats in a day. Well, believe an elephant, depending on its size, will depend on how much it eats. So it eats between 4 and 6% of its body weight. In the summer months when foods are more nutritious, then it will be about 4%. But now as we go into winter and the grasses dry out and the leaves are not so full of nutrients, it will then go up to 6%. So that would mean in an adult female, she's probably eating about 200 kilograms of grass a day, or food a day, and in a big bull elephant can be as much as 300, which is really a crazy amount. Now, interestingly enough, I was talking to some people a few weeks ago that are studying elephants in the Kruger Park, and they were telling me last year in the drought that those elephants were eating even more, up to 8% of their body weight, because of how devoid the bush sort of nutrients was in the plants that they were eating, which is really incredible that they had to then eat so much more. And that's why we probably saw so much destruction last year and so little plant cover over the land. Literally everything was being eaten by all of the animals as they were trying to find. Now we've just been bombarded by a bird. Ferg, did you see that? A bird has just flown from our left hand side through the window, which is right here, past Ferg's head and out the other side of the tent. So we have a extreme bird, which is almost like a Red Bull race through here. Now for those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about, a Red Bull race, well, there's these aeroplane races that Red Bull sponsors, and they go flying through all of these sort of targets and barriers and all kinds of things, and that's maybe what the birds are up to this afternoon. Right, now from one elephant playing in the dam to something that's really not anywhere near the size of an elephant, but is also going to a dam, and I wonder if he's going to go play. Let's go across to James.
I suppose he thinks he's watching the monitor now and thinking how very funny he was there, saying that I wasn't quite as big as an elephant. Thank you, Tristan. Very good. We are on our way to Buffelshoek Dam now. See if we can find something there. Hello, Tula Ann. I know that you had your pancakes, I think it was on Saturday or Sunday, and you say, have I had any pancakes yet? I haven't, you know. I can't believe it. Amanda's made us lots of very nice breakfasts, but she hasn't made any pancakes yet. And I know that I think Tuesday is pancake day, and that's tomorrow, so maybe we'll have pancakes tomorrow morning. So will you remember to ask me tomorrow, and I'll tell you if we had pancakes or not. It's either tomorrow or on Wednesday. I can never really work it out. I'm very looking forward to them, though. Every time you mention them, I start to feel very hungry. Now, there's not a great deal of life here on Cheetah Cut Line at the moment. Cheetah Cut Line, of course, is our eastern boundary. And so we're heading up the eastern boundary, seeing what has gone to and from during the course of the day. There we are. Oh, there's an aeroplane. A lioness came walking up this road. And she came walking up this road after this morning's drive. That is quite exciting. Maybe we should have a look at her tracks. What say you, Sebastian? I think there was more than one lioness that came walking up here. I think it was at least 2 of them. Now I must make sure they aren't lying in the bushes here, otherwise I'll get eaten. Now this is very nice because she turned round here, she did a little kind of pirouette, and I think then carried on going this way. Let's look over here. Can you see here, Seb?
Yeah, I was. If we can do that one, I've got better light on it.
This one?
That one, yeah.
So here is the track of a lioness, as you can see. It's not as fresh as, say, this afternoon, because there is some kind of what looks like an ant trail. It's definitely an ant trail. There's the ant nest over there. You see there? And there's an ant trail on top of the track. But there are bird tracks from this morning that she has walked on top of. There are beetle tracks. In fact, there's a beetle track here that she's walked on top of. So this came up. She was walking up here, I think, at mid-morning. The tracks go all the way. They keep going. And there's another one on this side of the road as well. This is very exciting. Let's keep going. I don't know if anybody drove this road this morning, and I know that there were no lions found this morning. Maybe they'll be at Buffelshoek Dam, where we are going. That would be very exciting. Yes, Aaron, let us indeed. Let us find some lions having buffalo pancakes. Right, let's go to the next junction. Keep an eye out, Seb. It's very unusual that we'd be tracking lions at all at this time of the day, simply because, you know, if you find them in the morning, then you know where they are, and you know they don't move around much. But these lions have done some wandering during the day. I don't know if anybody drove up here this morning. Doesn't look like it. Looks like she's on top of all the vehicle tracks. You know, I think it was sort of probably, I'm going to say, around about 9 o'clock this morning. There is some other animal activity on top of hers, but not much. Let's just pop up to the next junction and see if we can't spot where they've gone. Of course, they could easily be anywhere in the shade around here. Alright, while I am concentrating on this, let's head back across to Jamie and find out where she is going after her elephants.
I am basically just bumbling around. I think I'm going to do a check of the various water holes, but we have just found a pair of battling rams. Shame, the one's desperately trying to back away, but it doesn't want to turn its back on its opponent, so it keeps walking into trees and bushes. And the one on the left is clearly outmatched and outsized by the one on the right, and it just wants to get away. But unfortunately, at this time of year, with these hormones flying about, hold on, it's going to pop out in the road. It doesn't really want to risk injury by being stabbed by the impala ram while it's retreating. So it's got to sort of walk backwards and keep ducking its head to block the shots. There they come now. You can see the one on the left is clearly on the back foot, quite literally in this case, and being slowly but surely herded away from a herd of impala on quarantine by this big male. And this is relatively typical of two males that actually haven't yet managed to secure their harem. They're still battling each other, but not as intently as a big dominant ram that's actually managed to claim some females. So in a way, a lot of this is practice. They obviously both heard something off in the distance. What's there? The battle stops, and then the battle continues once the sound is identified. And what they've actually heard, I can see what they've heard, is another group of young impala rams walking towards them, but definitely not a threat to these two boys. Here they come, out of the vegetation. Pays to be alert if you're an impala, and on everybody's menu. So they're the young boys. You can see their horns are not fully grown. They're not as large as the rams that are battling away in front of us. Now, the fun thing about this, not the fun thing actually, for them it's not fun at all. The interesting thing for us is that these sorts of standoffs can last for days. And I never actually really realized this until I spent quite a bit of time driving around the same areas over the last few days. And I've seen the same impala rams battling each other in the same spots. They don't actually move all that far away from each other. It's like that pair of rams near Red Dam. And they might walk away and they might stop to graze for a bit, and then as soon as the one gets close, there you go, the battle continues. Not quite a battle. At this point, it's a show more than anything else. It's a show of strength rather than an actual physical clash. They're saving up their strength for when they're going to really need it. Oh, little one. Yeah. Yes, that's what happens when you thrash your head in grass inflorescences. You get seeds up your nose and then you sneeze. The unforeseen drawbacks. Instant hay fever. And all of this is very typical behavior. Rubbing the gland on the top of their head and also just showing off how big and strong they are. Young ram taking some notes for when the time comes that he's big enough to do this as well. Must be exhausting. This constant need to be on edge. It's no wonder that so many of them get caught by leopards. Myrna, you want to know what is my opinion in introducing other antelope to Djuma? I don't think it's necessary. I don't approve of it really, in the sense that I think Mother Nature knows best and human beings have messed around plenty. Look, Nyala are actually technically introduced antelope to this particular part of the world, but they've become so well established that that's not something that we can remedy. But we don't really need to do this any further. There we go, there's our two battling rams. So why on earth would we... I don't quite know if you mean species that don't occur here, or if you mean antelope. Either way, actually, I don't think it's necessary. The population in this particular area controls itself perfectly, but introducing something like sable or roan, I can sort of understand in that sable and roan became quite an endangered species, but they have been reintroduced to the reserve in areas where they would have occurred. Yes, you thrash that bush. And that was weird. Off they went. The one big male just gave up and went dashing off, making a big grunting sound that way. Wonder why. Actually, introducing antelope... I just want to go backwards so we can watch what they're doing. I haven't quite finished with the introduction of antelope question. Oh, now we're all running. Oh goodness, this is the one thing about impala at this time of year. They move quickly. Let's do the whole safari backwards. Just quickly, let me answer John's question and then I'll get back to introducing antelope. Oh, well, they're gone now. John, you wanted to know why they're sticking their tongues out in the way that they were doing. I think a combination of grass seeds. Now they're gone. Completely. I think a combination probably of grass seeds going up their noses, and also there's a lot of scent marking happening. Whenever they rub their heads on the trees like that, they've got a gland up here between or close to their horns, and that actually puts some of their scent on there. So I think some of it is actually not phlegm and grimacing, but transferring the scent into their mouths. But mostly I think it's to get rid of all of the grass seeds that gather, because their heads are down far more than they might otherwise be. Might also be botfly larvae in their nostrils. That might also result in their head shake. We see that a lot with wildebeest and with zebra. So it could be that. As for introducing antelope, I think it's up to people who are far more on top of the science of this whole area. I don't think it's necessary, to be honest. I think that sable and roan and so on have been introduced in the numbers that they need to be. And it's up to them now and their natural populations to either increase or decrease. They never would have been Mala mala is called mala mala because it's the local word for sable. Apparently there used to be lots and lots of sable in this area, but we've already changed the dynamic so much by introducing waterholes, which means it brings in far more water-dependent antelope and buffalo and hippopotamus, whereas sable are a more arid-dwelling antelope. So already they're starting to be out-competed, and that's probably the reason why their numbers don't succeed or aren't as large as they used to be. I don't think it's really necessary from here on to increase the numbers. Maybe sable and roan, because people have played a role in the reduction of their numbers in the past. But all other antelope, their populations are stable, and nature will sort it out herself. Now, Robin, you want to know, watching the impala as they go through their hormonal moments, you want to know if they go through any actual physiological changes. They do. A lot of their reproductive organs, so the glands, the various glands, things like the prostate glands, the seminal vessels, the testicles themselves actually increase in size. Their testosterone levels double because it's being produced at a much higher rate. And their necks thicken as well. The neck of a dominant male impala is much, much thicker than it is normally. Those are the main physiological changes that they go through. Then, of course, when they do actually manage to get a harem, they lose condition very quickly. They're all big and powerful and strong at the end of a wet season. Now they're really struggling, or they will start to really struggle, because they don't eat properly, they don't sleep properly, they don't groom properly. When they have the females with them, all they do is mate, chase the females, and chase other males away. Billy Safarian, there's an interesting question. Is the impala rut more of an endurance-based or a strength-based competition? I'm going to say strength, actually, although I suppose endurance also plays a role in it. But if you think about it, the strongest male impala is going to get the females first. He's going to go through that whole process, mate with the females, hopefully impregnate them, lose power because he's lost condition, but then immediately he's got the opportunity, once he's lost that control of that harem, to build up his condition again and then to start the whole process again. So the stronger you are, the better. But it is a little bit of both. It's hard to say one or the other, I would say. It's a combination of both. And then, of course, there's the fact that every female that isn't fertilized now is going to come into a second estrus in the next month or so. And then other males have a chance to mate with them. And then it's great. You get a real nice spread of genetics. Now, those impala were racing straight towards Tristan in the tent. I hope he's taken cover somewhere in there.
Well, not yet, Jamie. There's no impalas that have come flying through. We've just had birds dive bombing us so far, but hopefully we'll see some impalas running through. It would be nice to see a impala rut going on. I have heard them grunting away as they've been running around on quarantine, so maybe we'll see them. There was a little bushbuck that bypassed earlier and went off between us and FC and then up onto quarantine, so maybe it will find its way somewhere this way too. Now, I haven't finished with my spider yet because it's been really cool. We managed to sort of turn the leaf slightly, and we've got this really cool little image of it looking at us between the leaves, and you can see this one eye just keeping a beady eye on us, and it's I feel a bit like this is James's pet just watching me as I sit in the tent and make sure that I don't mess anything up or touch too many things. So I think what I'll have to do is just touch everything really and make sure that we leave some sort of sign for James that will thoroughly keep him entertained. Now, with our spider, what is also quite interesting is the colors that we've seen on this under the microscope. There's little blue colors and yellows, and what I think is because it's recently molted, its colors and its vibrance actually haven't come through as well as we probably will see when it all dries out. But what you can notice, which is incredible, are these microscopic hairs all along the legs and the face. And isn't that cool with its eyes poking out? So for those of you who like screenshots, I know it's a spider and I know a lot of you don't like spiders, but to me it looks really cool. I like the fact that it's just kind of poking its eye out between the leaves and watching us and seeing what we're up to. And like I said, those hairs really are quite incredible. You don't notice these things on spiders when you sort of see them with the naked eye, but this microscope allows us to get right in. And those hairs will all be very, very useful in detecting vibrations on the web when they do build their web in order to catch and hunt prey items. So really, really very, very cool. Now the eyes themselves, there are 8 of them, so it's just the 2 that we can see there, but the one in particular is kind of watching us with that white ring around it, and the rest of them are lined on the top and on the sort of front end of this spider. Now I do know what kind of spider it is. It is part of the Celticidae. Now Celticidae are jumping spiders, and so these guys are incredibly good at moving around. And the reason why this one probably is being so calm with us at the moment is because it's in this stage of its exoskeleton still drying, and so it knows it's very vulnerable, and rather than leave the structure of this leaf that it's built, it's going to then stay in there, and when it starts drying out, then we'll start to see it being far more active and mobile. And they have the most amazing system now. So when I was talking earlier about them getting out of their exoskeleton, it's the same kind of thing that they use when they are using their legs. Spiders don't have muscles that control their legs when they go outwards. So when they try and flex their muscles inwards with the legs, so when they pull the muscles towards themselves, they have little muscles attached, and so the legs can pull in. But going out, it doesn't have that. So what they do is they force blood into the legs, and that pushes them out. And it basically works like a hydraulic system. So as they kind of need it, they'll push them out. And with jumping spiders, they're able to pressurize that to the point that as they push, it's an explosive sort of jump like this, and the spider then goes bounding off and into the air and away from you. So they are really quite amazing in the way that they're able to do that. Other spiders don't quite have that same system, and it's probably why you find that a jumping spider has those very sort of rounded, big, thick legs in comparison to the body, is that they can force enough power and enough blood and hemolymph through that it allows them to then be able to jump. So really, really cool to see, and not something you're going to see every day, and especially with this microscope, it amazes me what we can actually find under there. Now, I'm going to try and see if we can't find anything outside, Ferg. I think it's that time of the day. I'm going to take our spider back into the wilderness. I don't want to leave him in the tent. He was on a bush willow, so I'm going to just take that, or she, should I say, on a bush willow. So I think we should take it out and maybe free it. Ultimately, we don't want to keep more spiders in the tent. We know we've had a spider infestation, and we checked our chair, and our brown recluse is actually still there. Ferg, did you see it? Under here. So George, the spider color can vary. Now we're trying to find the brown recluse that James found, but yes, they can. The color will vary according to the amount of time that the exoskeleton dries for. So some spiders will get a little bit more dull, and other spiders a little bit more vibrant. Now actually, which is quite cool, is our spider has come out. Now that I've come out into the sun, there we go. So you can see, get an idea of just how big the spider is. There's my finger next to it. There we go, hello fella. And that is how minute that spider is. And you can see there's little golds and blues and browns on that abdomen itself. That is so cool. Sorry buddy, I'm going to go take you back to your bush now. Very, very cool. And you can see how much it's grown. If you look at that old exoskeleton that's hanging from the leaf there, and then you look at the new one, you can see just how much bigger it's gotten over time. Really cool. Right, let's go free this, and in the meantime, let's go across to James, who's got something a little bit larger, but is also able to jump really, really high.
Yeah, it's even higher than jumping spider, everybody. It is a kudu. Let me move forward a bit so we can maybe get a slightly better picture. I think I've parked us on a mound. We had them right here. Naturally, they became camera shy as soon as we decided that we'd put them on screen. Really nice herd of kudu. Let me go back a bit. Those lion tracks, while we do that, they seem to go off the road just before actually I left you. I went back and I went to have a look, and they went, I think, onto Vuatela, that's onto Djuma. But because it's been a hot day, we're going to go and check Buffelshoek Dam. We're right near there now, and then we'll go back towards those tracks. No, they really are beautifully hidden now, aren't they, Seb? What a disaster. Okay, well, we're not far from Buffelshoek Dam. Let's head down there. Let's have a quick look at what's going on there. No doubt our hippopotami will have popped out there. Maybe the tracks of these lions too. Well, hang on. There they are. Is that not them on the road there? No, just a giant hyena. A giant hyena walking along the road. Tracks the size of a lioness's. Lovely afternoon. Be even lovelier with some lions. Very nice to see so many elephants. And it's hot enough, certainly, for there to be elephants at Buffelshoek Dam too. These birds they're shouting at something. Might be at just each other. You can maybe hear the plaintive whistle of the magpie shrike. Now, we'd expect to find a lion, if there was one here, in the shade. I don't see any just yet. I do see the hippo pop to my eye, so we'll just pop up onto the dam wall and then scan the shoreline and the shade for signs of lion. There's a beefalo. It's not a good sign when you're looking for lions. Justine, you're wondering what the rarest animal I've ever seen on safari is. Well, I think probably unquestionably a pangolin. I've seen a pangolin once before. It was very special. Where I used to work at a place called Ngala. And so I think that's probably almost certainly the most rare animal I've ever seen on safari. Right, now I'm going to scan the shoreline for any signs of lion, while you look at the hippo and the buffalo at the other end. It's a long time since I've seen buffalo here, and we need to now be very careful when we're on walks. I have wandered many times down to the edge of the dam there thinking I'll view the hippo from there, because I know there are no buffalo there. Well, that would have been a mistake today. But I can tell you that there are no lions lurking in the shade on the banks of the great Buffelshoek Dam. So we will not spend all afternoon trying to find these lions, but what we will do is turn around here and head back along towards where we last had the tracks, along a different road, and see if they didn't cross there. This hippopotamus is deeply fatigued by life. It is so fatigued that it cannot even stay awake to say hello to us. It's so fatigued that I started to yawn at the sight of it. Open your eyes. He is probably also closing his eyes, of course, because they are facing directly at the setting sun. Gosh, it would be wonderful to see a lion here, but I'm afraid I don't think that's going to happen today. You have had a look at the buffalo, have you, Seb?
Yes.
Alrighty. Well, there's the beef. Let's have one last look at the beef, and then we'll turn round. 2 buffalo in one drive. I mean, that's something of a rarity these days. We're greatly privileged, aren't we, Seb?
Yep.
To have 2 buffalo in one day, both chewing the cud. Gosh, our cup doth run over. Now, I wonder if they get wrinkly hooves. Do you think they get wrinkly hooves like we get wrinkly skin from lying in the bath for too long? Obviously they don't. Alright, let us head on. I can hear some chin spot battises in here, alarming. Are they shouting at a lion lying in the shade? Well, who knows? Alright, let's turn around up front here. Oh, there's a nyala. Highly unlikely that there are too many lions around if there's a nyala. There are two nyalas. That is the largest one, the major nyala. The other one walking off into the bush, a much smaller bull or male. He doesn't look like he's just seen a lioness to me. Very peaceful. It's been another completely cloudless day. There's been absolutely nothing by way of weather. And this is what winters are like for us. And it's why we who live in the Lowveld feel that the Lowveld winter is possibly South Africa's best kept secret. It is traditionally a fairly quiet tourist time for people from overseas. South Africans flock in their hundreds to our wildlife destinations at this time of the year. But generally, because it's summer in Europe and the United States, of course people are at home and enjoying their European holidays or American summer holidays. Now Tristan not only seems to have taken my home, but he also seems to have taken my moniker as the Spider-Man, and he's taking it very seriously.
Well, yes, James, and that's because your tent is inundated with many of these eight-legged critters. They are all over the place. I feel like we've put James in harm's way the last few weeks by leaving him in here for such long periods of time. There are literally spiders everywhere. So I think we might have to do a little bit of a clean out, trying just to get James a little bit safer. But what we've got here is a green lynx spider. Now, I actually hadn't seen too many of these, or never had seen one, until about a week ago, and then James Richard, if you're watching, he suggested that it might be a green lynx spider, and it was on the dash of my vehicle, and since then I've actually seen 3 or 4 of them, so it seems like they are coming out quite a bit now, and they really are a sort of beautiful color. They've got this lime green color to them and very difficult to spot, and probably why I've never noticed them is because I haven't really been looking for them that hard. When you're on sort of bushwalk with guests, very many people don't actually like spiders very much at all, and so you find you don't look out for them that much, and especially inconspicuous spiders like this that camouflage so well. So that green color is perfect, particularly on these young leaves of this buffalo thorn. You can see where the light is hitting just over there that it's a very similar shade of green, and it makes it quite tough to see. And you'll find that this particular spider probably doesn't have that much venom, and that's why you'll see that it has a better coloration and camouflage than something like the orbweb. The orbweb is much larger, big venom glands, and therefore it can be out in the open and not have to worry, whereas a small spider like this is going to have to be in a place where it can camouflage very well. But look at how long its legs are. They've got massively long legs in relation to the size of their body, and a complete different shape to what we saw on the Salticidae. Don't worry, Ferg, he is a fairly mobile character, moving around quite a bit. And like I say, it's got a complete different shape. It's got a much more elongated sort of look to it, long legs, and I would imagine because that spider is far more mobile in terms of running and using its legs, as opposed to the jumping spider that we saw just now, the Salticidae, that uses that jumping motion to get from place to place. So they've got short stocky legs to be able to jump, whereas these guys are probably runners, and so the longer their legs, the quicker they can traverse across these tree branches and ground areas and stay out of trouble and away from predators. So very, very cleverly designed, that's for sure. The other thing that the spider has done very, very well is that it's sitting on a buffalo thorn. Now, buffalo thorns are trees that are covered in thorns. You can see there's quite a few of them around the spider, so it'll make it a lot more difficult for prey animal or predators to get to this spider. So you'll find things like birds, they're going to battle to perch on here. It's also right at the end of the branch where the branches are quite sort of supple, so it's not going to support the weight of a large predator like a bird, and therefore the spider can actually hide out. Now Fergie's come around onto the leaf on this side and is trying to hide from you. There we go. But you can see how when Ferg moves, it moves, so it's definitely got a very, very good sort of perception of where everything is and how everything moves. Now, I think it was Machine Gun, was that it? Chantal, I know Chantal fed me a question, but I forgot the name. I do apologize, Chantal. If you can just tell me who it was. Machine Gun Ned. why are some spiders blind? So we're now just seeing how this one reacts to movement through its eyesight. Well, you'll probably find those